All right, we are live. Hi,
Okay.
Turi.
Hi, Nico.
I'm going to ask you some questions about what you're contributing to the 200-hour yoga teacher training, and we'll begin with, who are you? What's your kind of yoga background, meditation rather, or both? Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. My name is Turi Hetherington. I've been in the Gallatin Valley for 30 plus years. And it was probably about 15 years ago that I did my first yoga teacher training. Practiced yoga prior to that, which was really supportive for me physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I was at a point in my life that I wanted to dig deeper into learning more beyond that hour-long class. And so that's when my journey began in yoga, with that first 200-hour. And then didn't know if I was going to teach or not, which often happens to people, and ended up teaching so that I could practice what I was learning and try to embody this yogic life and really weave it into my life. But I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, what was my specialty as a teacher. So I just kept learning and pursued from the 200, continued with the yoga school, Yoga Motion Academy with Nancy Ruby, where I started. I started working with her. I started attending everything she offered and ended up getting my 500 through Yoga Motion. And then I also went on and did Yoga of Sound, a mantra training, trying to help me find my voice as a yoga teacher. And that was really a profound experience. After that, I went into Yoga Nidra. The Yoga of Sound really enhanced my personal practice, but it wasn't something I felt called as a teacher to teach. It was more, this is something that really helps me. And I really loved the quieter practices, more of the calming, nourishing, tending to the nervous system aspects of like Shavasana. And Yoga Nidra was something I was pulled to because during my very first yoga teacher training, one of the co-teachers was going through her iRest Yoga Nidra teacher training. And so we were kind of her guinea pigs. And so we had that throughout our whole training. And so I revisited that, met with her, and decided to pursue iRest Yoga Nidra training, and went through the level 1, 2, and certification of that. And that is what felt really, really good to me to share, and really benefited me as a human being, to have these practices that I could do as a formal practice, but also weave it into my life as an informal practice and help others with that. So Yoga Nidra became something that I've focused primarily on over the last several years, but still continue to pursue other trainings. And I use what I learn also with the brain injury community through Love Your Brain organization and through Concussion Resource Center. That's kind of like the condensed short story. I'm happy to elaborate on any of those points in there, but that's been kind of my journey over the last 15 years.
Yeah, I love your story because I think it shows really well how a 200-hour yoga teacher training can lead people into these depths of what is most intriguing to them, and it might be a path never expected.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, can you talk a little bit more specifically about iRest and Yoga Nidra and what you'll be offering in the training?
Absolutely. Yes. So iRest Yoga Nidra, that's short for the iRest part for integrative restoration. And it's through the Integrative Restoration Institute, shortened to iRest for short, that combines the ancient practice of Yoga Nidra along with modern day science. So there's a lot of research behind it. And they did a lot of research also with the military of, is iRest something that can support individuals as they go through to help manage some of the symptoms with PTSD. And what their research showed was that iRest indeed helps to decrease PTSD, anxiety, depression, and also improve sleep and overall well-being. And I loved that it had this science background to it too, because that's really meaningful to a lot of people to see what is the efficacy of these practices. I think we can feel it when we experience it, but sometimes to even hear about it, the science really can help draw some people in. So iRest Yoga Nidra, what makes it a little bit different than traditional Yoga Nidra is that it has, it's a specific 10-step protocol. And the first portion of those steps is really the sense of settling into your inner resource and connecting to what it is that brings you a sense of meaning, purpose, and value in life. So we spend some time that's our first 3 steps, kind of grounding in that, or just opening to the question of it. And then the next steps follow the koshas, which I know you're going to be talking about in teacher training. And people are like, what's that? It's these layers of our being, like from the gross to the subtle, of the physical body, the energetic body, the breath, the feelings and emotions, thoughts and beliefs, cognitions, bliss, joy, and then this sense of awareness, and then integration. So we're kind of exploring these different aspects of our being. And so I'll be sharing a little bit back of what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we work with that? And we can touch lightly on each of those steps in a practice. So when you're in a formal practice of iRest Yoga Nidra, you might go through every single one of those, or you might focus a little bit more on one and touch into the other ones a little bit more kind of lightly. So there's lots of different ways to use these practices to bring a greater sense of balance to all these layers of your being. So I feel like I'm going a little bit off on a tangent, but in essence, iRest is a 10-step protocol that is based on these ancient teachings, and it's a guided meditation. And what's nice with a guided meditation for anybody that's new to meditation, it gives something for the brain to hold on to rather than big gaps of silence where the mind might more easily wander off. There's a voice that you can keep coming back to, that it gives something for the mind to kind of tether itself to, which can be helpful. And then it also can help to quiet that busy thinking mind as well, and then bring in a greater sense of relaxation.
Yes,
So.
I can definitely relate with that. I think because I got this feedback from last time you taught too, is that it's a lot of people, sometimes meditation is hard because your brain goes off in these tangents and maybe causes more anxiety or stress sometimes. Whereas with the Yoga Nidra practice, I thought that it was either you were paying attention to your beautiful, lovely voice that was so amazing to listen to, or sleep, or like deep, restful. There was no kind of crazy nonsense brain things happening in the practice itself, which was really beautiful.
Yeah, Yoga Nidra translates to the sleep of the yogi. So you are in that state of consciousness between kind of sleep and wakefulness. Your body is deeply at rest, but the mind is processing information and online 24/7. So you might even hear yourself snoring. Sometimes that can happen. And you're not doing the practice wrong. If you fall asleep, your body needs the sleep. But you'll notice that when I get to the end and say, come back to your alert, awake state of being, you wake up, even if you fall asleep, because there's that part of your mind that is still hearing my words. So it can be deeply restful. And it also helps us to just build a different relationship with ourselves. I often think of it kind of as a coming home to yourself. I think that often in our busy world where there's so much information out there and a lot of really good information, and we're always taking so much in, and there's a lot of nonsense out there too, but as we're trying to like filter all of it, we might lose touch with that inner wisdom. And these quieter practices and this practice of Yoga Nidra helps us to touch back into that. our own internal wisdom and the ability to maybe filter some of that out, to recognize what's more true and meaningful for us. That brings us a greater sense of stability and ease when we go back into life, that sense of being a little bit more the person you want to be, from having this time to kind of pause and reconnect and recalibrate the system.
Yeah. What I remember is that I don't remember exactly every single 10 step, but I remember when you were teaching us, I was like, oh, that's familiar from this type of therapy or practice or mindfulness, or like that's familiar from what I've learned from there. And so it kind of, what I loved is that it pulls together all these really beautiful ways and ties them up into one singular practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, you could think of it as multidisciplinary, or just that aspect of coming home to ourselves, and we can do that in different ways. And I think this practice so beautifully weaves it together, and I think that's why it feels so good to me. And so not easy doesn't seem like the right word, but maybe it feels good to share it with people as well, like to give these tools to people, because it just feels right in the body and in the mind and in the heart, to bring that more into alignment through the koshas and through that self-inquiry.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm leading a mentorship program right now, and this Sunday we're going to talk about holding space and as a yoga teacher. So I kind of want to touch on, the importance of being able to hold space and find regulation in yourself, especially as a yoga teacher. Could you just talk a little bit about why you might think that the iRest and the Yoga Nidra and this practice that you're teaching could be really beneficial for a yoga teacher specifically?
Oh, great question. I think, let me see how to word this. I guess maybe from my own personal experience is the best way to think of it, that after going through yoga teacher training and you have all this information and you want to go out and teach, sometimes I felt like I was almost like throwing up all this information, like here's some anatomy, here's some philosophy, here's some poetry, because there's just like so much I want to share. In the practice of Yoga Nidra, when I would dive deeper into that, again, it's more of that like sense of interconnection, knowing myself, so I know more about what it is I want to share and how I want to share it. So it's part of that embodiment of the teachings of yoga, and I think it helps to connect. For me personally, helped me just connect to that more.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel I could support a yoga teacher, is just knowing yourself more. That can help us with anything in life, in our relationships, and especially in the way that we hold space and that we show up for our students, because we have to show up for ourselves first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That. Awesome. Well, anything else you would like to share today about the training or about iRest?
There's no way to do it wrong. So I think often what people say, because I taught meditation for credit at MSU for several years, and I used iRest as the foundation for the curriculum for that. We did other practices as well, but what often comes up, whether it was through MSU or just people new to meditation, is like, I'm doing it wrong. I can't sit still. I can't quiet my mind. There's nothing wrong with that. The mind is a thinking machine. And I think if some people can unhook themselves from having to do it right and just to be present, what's wonderful, I feel, about Yoga Nidra, the foundation to these 10 steps, is a sense of welcoming whatever arises. So not having to like pull in a sense of like peace and stillness, but more of like this welcoming whatever arises and not having to push away anything either. It's like everything's free to come, everything's free to go. And just being with whatever it is that arises and having tools to work with that, because of course we have our preferences for whether we want any of that to be here or not. Like we want the peace. Yeah, that feels great. But then when that feels disturbed, rather than trying to make that go away, to have tools of like, what's it like to be with irritation, or what's it like to be with impatience? It was helpful for me to have these tools to be with whatever else arises in the meditation practice and know that it's okay. And I think that's one of the things it's helpful to know that there's no way to do it wrong, and that you can gain tools and resources to be with, whether it's physical sensations that arise that are distracting, an emotion, a thought, or that repeat playlist that can play in the head. Like, how can we interrupt maybe some of those thoughts and work with them, or just kind of watch the motion of all of it? That I hope to offer some of those tools just to make meditation a little bit more accessible, and also be able to bring in that sense of calm and ease, because there's a lot that helps to stimulate us in this world to action and to that sympathetic nervous system. And so to have more tools to be able to balance that out, of like that calming, that grounding, that rest, digest, repair, and heal. I hope that I can offer some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was so helpful, and I really appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you. And you do such a fabulous job with this teaching. I think that's the other thing to add, the way that you've woven together the curriculum, the way that you relate to all the students and help everyone to feel welcome and that they belong in the group, and just the interactions from what I witnessed. You just do such a wonderful job holding the space and bringing in these ancient practices and weaving them into modern day life. So kudos to you for putting together such a wonderful curriculum and holding the space for this journey.